Hi, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank you all for taking this time to be here with us with this phenomenal summit that will be going on throughout the month of April. And of course, on behalf of all the refugees around the world, we are truly grateful for all the individuals, entities, communities that are taking the time to acknowledge, address, and also tackle the refugee crisis that's going on. So now let me introduce myself. My name is Bilan Alam. I'm originally from Eritrea. I have a bachelor's of degree in computer engineering, and my journey as a refugee started back in 2017. Um, that's when I fled to Sudan to seek refuge. After spending a brief time in Sudan, again, I had to seek refuge elsewhere due to the ongoing Sudan revolution that was taking place back in 2019. And after that, I went to Ethiopia. And after spending almost 4 months at the Harish refugee camp in Ethiopia, I was then permitted to move and to relocate to the capital city, Addis Ababa of Ethiopia. And when I got to Addis Ababa, I just told myself that, I either have to be working or learning. So I tried tackling the first objective, which was to find employment anywhere I could find it. But as soon I learned sooner than later that once you have that status as a refugee, it's not that really easy. And of course, then I went to my second objective, which was to find any learning platform where I could grow and hone any kind of skills that I could find. And that's when I came across the MIT React program. This was in May 2020. And after being accepted to the 1-year program, I can honestly say that this was where, in PC term, the whole program really updated my software and just sent me out to the world. Here, of course, the MIT React is encapsulated with the phenomenal organizations such as NAMAL, MIT Joel, and also the MIT boot camps. And they really honed and shaped all of us learners there. And after graduating around September 2021, through their support, I was able to find employment and make real changes in my life. And now I'm at the stage where I work remotely for two entities, one located in the US and another one located in Spain. So far, this is my journey, but I would like to take this moment to share with you some of the key issues that I did notice as a refugee, and I still believe that other refugees are facing. And one would be regarding resource allocation. For example, there are many humanitarian advocates, entities out there that are, providing different types of resources to refugee settlers or refugee camps. For example, if we're saying that we're sending this one textbook per one refugee, is it reaching its intended target? In most cases, what you will see is that one textbook would, in the worst case, it wouldn't reach those refugees or refugee camps. Or in other case, what would happen is that one that one textbook would be shared among 10 or 15 other refugees instead of being utilized by one refugee. So what is happening to the other resources? You know what's happening is that all the other resources are allocated, are being utilized or for profit. They're being sold in the local markets. That's what we noticed while I was at the refugee camps. And of course, the second aspect here is the language barrier. It's never easy to learn a new language, but are there enough programs within those refugee camps that are teaching those refugees so that they could tackle this language barrier? Most of the time, they're not. If we could tackle that language barrier, what you would have is that you would have the ability for those refugees, they could easily communicate with the natives. So hence they would easily find jobs or even continue their education. And the third aspect here, when we come to the educational aspects, some refugees are fortunate enough to bring their transcripts along the way. And even though they have their transcripts, most higher educations would require those refugees to authenticate their papers. and they don't have that privilege because they are seeking refuge from those entities that could provide that specific authentication. And for those refugees that don't have those educational transcripts, what happens is that there are programs that allow them to take IQ tests so that they could, those institutes could better understand their level of education. So they would be hindered through such types of barriers. And of course, from the first one, when we look at the work or employment barriers, in most cases, most host nations, they say that they permit refugees to work. But when we come down to the ground level, this is not necessarily true. What you would have is you would be put in a limbo state where you would have to go back and forth between certain entities and also the refugee advocate entities, where they would tell you, no, you could go work. But when you ask them, you need the work permit. So I believe from personal experience, these are some of the most significant barriers that are hindering refugees to learn and also to better themselves. And also, I would like to leave you with the last remark is that, no one chooses to be a refugee. It just simply occurs, whether it be through conflict, war, whether it be political views or human rights violations, but no one chooses to be a refugee. And just because you have a refugee status doesn't necessarily mean you can learn or even grow or even work. And I don't want to pass by without acknowledging what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. It's really sad to see this type of situation occurring here. I mean, we just got through the COVID pandemic. Of course, there are other nations that are still going through it, but it's really sad to see this happening. I hope that it easily gets resolved. But without further ado, please help me in welcoming our guest speaker for today, Mondiant Dogon, who's the author of the book, Those We Throw Away Our Diamonds. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Blaine. Thank you so much, MIT. Thank you so much, everybody who made this happen. So I'll really say, don't have the word to say, especially when I was invited by MIT Refugee Action Hub. So I say, this is a great opportunity that I can miss. And also I met great people, the people why I started journey where I am today. The reason was like people like Blaine and Nafiso, like other people I met through, different types of platform, maybe on social media, or the people I got connected to from my friend or other ways. So thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Blaine. And I was so excited to meet you and learn about you and, say, that's why I started Mondiant Initiative.
Sorry, Mondiant. Sorry, would you mind showing your video again? Sorry about that. That was a tech issue. Sorry.
Okay. Still, I think now works.
Very good. Thank you.
So I was saying thank you so much, Blaine, for the wonderful introduction. And today, I think I want to say good morning before I start. I want to say good morning to everybody, especially these people who attended. Thank you so much for taking your time and come out to attend this event. So today I'll be speaking about survival, resilience, commitment, investing in others, and the power of education in refugee communities. And I think whenever I go to speak, tell people when I'm with refugee community, I think everybody can identify the moment their life changed forever. That moment when maybe a final attack came to a village. It might be in Syria, like Damascus or Aleppo, where the war started, or maybe Hama in the south of the country. Or maybe it might be at the time that kind of impossible hunger like Eritrea or Somalia or anywhere in Ethiopia, where a lot of that hunger caused a lot of people to board a rubber dinghy from Libya to Europe. Or maybe the realization that your region may force you across the border from Myanmar to Bangladesh. For me, it was kind of different things. It was same reason, but what forced me to leave my village was the genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda that was happening in 1994. So when it crossed the border to Congo, that was one of the reasons. And one day, it was afternoon, when my dad came at our front door bleeding from the head, and from then on I left. My family and we left the village because of that war that spilled over into Congo. So before I fled, I was a son of Congolese cattle ranchers, a child happy to grow in the shade of our house until I was big enough to help my parents working on the farms. But that life and my expectation as a child who asked everything I needed flipped over due to that violence and war against Congolese Tutsis. So my family and I forced to leave our village in 1995. Since then, we've lived in refugee camp till today, some of my family members. So from then on, I became part of the family of the 26 millions who are in a protracted refugee situation. And this category represents 78% of all the refugees displaced worldwide. Maybe some of you don't know what protected refugee situation means, but the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees defined the protected refugee situation as one in which 25,000 or more refugees from the same nationality have been in refugee situation for 5 or more years in a given asylum country. For example, if you see Syrian refugees in Turkey are in protected refugees, and also if you see Burmese in Thailand, or you see Colombian refugees in Venezuela, or millions of Afghan refugees have been living in Pakistan for almost 4 decades now, and millions of Ukrainians have fled their country now, and we almost certainly become in a protected refugee situation as the years go by without change. So that's why I call us the forever refugees. I was born in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, a very beautiful village called Bikenke. Life was very beautiful. We had everything we needed. We didn't have electricity, we didn't have running water, we didn't have hospitals, but we were mostly joyful. And we lived with a purpose. We had some jobs to do. For example, those of us who were old enough, they took turns into working on the farms with our parents. And those who were young, like me, like children, we got captivated by our grandmother's wisdom. So we listened to her fables, stories while we sat around the fire because we didn't have electricity. But 3 years after I was born, everything completely changed. The genocide against Tutsi in the neighboring country called Rwanda spilled over into Congo, and my tribe, including my family, was targeted. So that's how I moved. I fled my village, Bikenke, and I started roaming through the forest of Eastern Congo. Our walks to the border of Rwanda were not easy at all. We had a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges. We bribed a lot of people to avoid killing us. For example, my uncle Korosira was beheaded in front of me while he was holding my hand. My aunt and cousins were burnt alive while we were watching from the hill where we were hiding. Life was not easy to get to Rwanda. It was totally a lot of challenges and obstacles as refugees who were trying to leave our village and the Congo to Rwanda. And the reason why we became forever, we lived in refugee camp from 1995 till today, is because the stories of how people become refugees are well known. You may see them, they appear in newspapers headlines. They are the image of people walking through a desert or crowding together under the tent in the rain, or tens of millions of refugees in the world might be separated by war or maybe by culture, by language or geography. People may be in Ukraine, people may be in Syria, people may be in Congo, in Eritrea, in Somalia, but all these people will have the same stories. All these people will share that moment when we stopped being who we are and we became refugees. So we have a lot of things in common. I've never been to East Syria, I've never been to Ethiopia or Eritrea, but when I talk to Blaine, when I shared my story to Blaine, and Blaine shared my story, his story to me, we had a lot of things in common. That's why I believe that as a refugee in general, whoever you are, whatever your skin color, whatever your region, we are all the same and we have all the same problems. And These stories also, it is when the stories become less well known and when they fade from headlines that we become forever refugees. And we beg the world sometimes when we meet like the way we are meeting, we beg the world to remember us. We want to remind the world that refugee stories don't end when we arrive in refugee camp or these temporary centers like in Turkey. Refugees camp are no longer rows of tent. It is the community filled with the hope for better future and ready to work with host communities to make this world a better place for everybody who lives on it. When I arrived in Rwanda in 1996, our life completely flipped because in refugee camp, we didn't have enough food. We didn't have a lot of opportunities like we had. We didn't have a job to do. But my family and I faced so many challenges. We were always hungry. We withstood with illnesses, pregnancies, and injury without medical services. Many of our neighbors who were host communities, they hated us, and for the same reason, we had to fight to work or go to school. I grew up in a refugee camp called Gihembe. Gihembe is a refugee camp that was located in northern province of Rwanda. And days in the Gihembe were like, when I was in the Gihembe at the beginning, I was very young, 5 years old. So for me, it was kind of fun. I made a lot of connection. I met other children, so we played soccer together in refugee camp. Because I was too young, I didn't care about life in refugee camp. But when I get older, days in the camp were long with little to do. The click of the rocks on the Makala boats. The Makala boats, these are the games many of African people play. So the rocks on the Makala boats counted it down the second. And many of my friends drank alcohol to speed up the minutes. For as long as I can remember, we were given 2 portions, maize, flavorless beans, and rotten maize. And we take these meals sometimes because we were given that very simple portion. We ate like in one meal in 2 or 3 days. So life was completed. It was very challenging. So at that time when I was in Gihembe, I was always very hungry. I know what it is like to grow in refugee camp. As Blaine said, it's not easy. We had a lot of limitation. I know what I can imagine what Blaine or someone else who live in refugee camp, they experience. I can feel them. So I know how to run up against all limitation. I know how poor school is in refugee camp, lower pay, starvation. Every day, no matter how determined you might be like a guy who is all the time, you're at the top of the class, you wanna be president, you wanna be a pilot. But when you live in refugee camp, you're going to face a lot of limitation to achieve your dream. So it was in Gihembe where I started meeting friends like my friend Celestine and my friend Patrick and other friends like Agizo. But these people, I didn't have the opportunity to keep growing with them. A lot of people, when you're in refugee camp, you think that you are safe. But I realized in 1997, when I was in refugee camp called Mudende, the refugee camp was attacked. It was in August 1997. So my best friend, Celestine and Patrick, we lived in the same tent. So 10 families lived in one tent. So Celestine and Patrick were my closest friend. We played soccer, we played marble, we enjoyed, I remember very well, when it was raining, we took off our t-shirt and played in the rain, and in the rain because we didn't have other clothes, and our parents were afraid that they may punish us. So we took all of them, the clothes, we get naked and we played the soccer. So it was kind of fun. But in August 1997, Patrick had a dream. He wanted to be a pilot, and Celestine, he wanted to be a teacher. So when we were young, everybody had dream, and we were in a refugee camp in Mudende, but we said, oh man, I want to be this, I want to be this. But all these dreams were over in August 1997 when the massacre came in refugee camp in Mudende. Patrick and I, we always slept together in the very small bag. We didn't have mattress or anything. And one night we heard explosion in refugee camp, and bullets flying all over. And my family, my parents, everybody, my siblings, and everybody in the tent, they flew. So everybody, they fled, and we didn't know where they went to hide. So Patrick and I and Celestine, we ran our own. And when we get somewhere, because in refugee camp, everywhere people were screaming, being killed, and you can hear the voice of killers. And we tried to zigzag in refugee camps, but we couldn't. We tried to say, we decided to hide because we didn't know where to go. So Patrick we were on the same age, but Patrick was stronger than us, than me and Celestine. So we got to the place where there were kind of a lot of dead bodies of people. We decided to hide, to make a group of bodies and hide into it. So we dragged people dead, body daddies, and make a pile. So we decided to hide in that pile of bodies. And Patrick was strong. He said, you have to be first to hide in this pile of bodies. So Celestine and I, Celestine hide, followed, and because Patrick wanted to make sure that we were hidden. And in the group where we were hiding in the pile of dead bodies, there was a man who was mourning. And when he was mourning, asking for help, a group of killers, they heard his voices, so they came to where we were hiding, and the man didn't stop mourning. And the guy took the knife and killed that man who was mourning. And Patrick couldn't help, so he screamed. And when he screamed, he get out of the pile. And also, that was the last time I saw Patrick. So his head was cut from his body, and that was the last time I saw him. And that was in August. And in December, almost to Christmas, and also another massacre came into refugee camp. My friend Celestine was always, we were all the time we were together. He ran, and we ran together, and we tried to hide behind the trash, the garbage can in refugee camp. But we realized that the houses were being burnt. We realized that people are going to see us, the killers. So we decided to go into the forest that was near the refugee camp. But Celestine was kind of traumatized. He couldn't. So I jumped out of the trash bin. I jumped out of that trash bin that was there, and I ran. When I get somewhere where I could see where we were hiding, I looked back and I saw Celestine. Celestine came out of where he was hiding. He was standing in the middle of killing. And I called, I screamed, I said, can you run, Celestine? But I knew he couldn't hear me. That was also the last time I saw my best friend Celestine. The reason why I share you these stories is because I show you that in refugee camp, we feel sometimes when we are provided everything by the UN, not the basic needs by the UN. The refugee camp is not safe. It's a place where you had all these limitations, plus the trauma of what you've been through. So we need to sometimes feel like we need to go beyond this. It might be UN, it might be the organization like Mondiant Initiative, or maybe MIT React or other organization. We need also to go beyond for what is basic for refugees and treat those invisible wounds for them. So in Gihembe, when I was in refugee camp in Gihembe, I learned what hunger does to people, even children. I saw one day, I remember, I saw it to my parents, I would never steal. But one day I was very hungry. I break that promise. And even after the Rwandan security guard canned my legs and my friend's leg, when they caught us taking passion fruit from their farm, we tried not to scream and make any noise. We didn't want anybody to know why we were being beaten, because I promised to my family that I will never steal. So in Gihembe, I learned also when I was there, because I spent most of my life in Gihembe, more than 22 years. I also learned that every parent, no matter how or where they live or under what kind of circumstances, we do everything for their children to have a better lives. Like my mom or my dad, and every parent will sacrifice everything they can to send their children to school, because education in refugee camp is the most important things that can help refugee to at least live behind the refugee camp, or also have the hope for future. Otherwise, you'll be there, waiting the time to say, I'll be staying here forever, my children, myself. And I started going to school in refugee camp, and that's where I started out. My school, when I started my first grade, I was in refugee camp. We didn't have enough resources. Resources for learning were scarce, were very limited. Without formal classrooms or school supplies, we learned however we could. Before every lesson, a teacher chose 2 students to each hold up one side of a long strip of paper, which the teacher used as a blackboard. When those students started complaining, their arms welting down the floor, they were replaced with other 2 students until the lesson was finished. And the teacher rolled up the paper and go tomorrow and come back tomorrow with the same paper or whatever. We didn't have classroom, we didn't have chair, we didn't have a desk. So we had a lot of kind of challenge in terms of school. We had no desk or pens or books. The most important thing was to have this kind of determination where you go there, you focus, and you say, you try to write on your thigh rather than a notebook or whatever. So education in refugee camp was and still now is very challenging. It's one of the challenges I think a lot of people face, as Blaine said or mentioned. So going to school, I studied in refugee till 9th grade. For example, in Rwanda, you study till 9th grade in refugee camps in Rwanda. So when you get into 9th grade, you start there. A lot of people, best friend of mine, they still live in refugee camp. And many of these people I know, they were born in refugee camp, now they are 26. So when they get into 9th grade, they stopped. Still now, they're still in refugee camp in Mahama, in Bikenke, anywhere in Rwanda, only playing Makala, waiting their day to die, to come and die. I stayed in school and eventually I graduated from the best university of Rwanda with a sponsorship from so many different people. In high school, I went to high school because I played soccer. And when I go to college for the first year, I didn't have money to sponsor me to go to college. I started from refugee camp and I went to Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda, to only do exams. And when in my second year, there was an American organization that supported me, and I graduated in 2016 from the best university of Rwanda. So I graduated partly because of my family, who gave up so much to make sure I stayed in school. It's partly because of my own determination. It's also partly because of miracle, a series of miracles. Sometimes, these miracles catch me at my worst moment, and not every miracle can be explained. So I made it through school and lived in Gihembe because I started writing. So when I was young, I used to write poems for the World Refugee Day in Rwanda, and I got prizes like books or T-shirts or whatever, very small prizes. I didn't expect to be a big author. And in 2013, I started writing a book about my life and also the lives of people who were around me. I moved from refugee camp to another camp to collect stories of war and rape. I wrote poems, and one of those poems, Those We Throw Away Are Diamonds, became the title of my book when I arrived here in New York, published the book with Penguin Random House. So I lived in refugee camp until 2017, and when another miracle took me at NYU, New York University. Before then, other than through the Rwandan friends I met in school, I had no idea what life was like outside refugee camp. My world was changing dramatically, but inside of my head were still just endless loads of tent. And when I was in Gihembe, before I left Gihembe coming to America, so Gihembe, everybody, we had a party, all refugee camp had a party. So they sent me off like aerospace engineers launching a new satellite into space. Some of them, they said, oh, please don't go and tell us how New York is. Please tell us how can we go also to school in America, things like that. So everybody, everything, some of my friends, they looked a little bit sheepish. They said, Dogon, are you coming back or are you leaving us? Things like, so they were awaiting a lot of things from me. So they take me, I remember in 2018, when I went back in Rwanda for the summer holidays, when I was at NYU, more than 1,000 people came at the airport, Kigali International Airport, with the flyers with my name on it. And people at the airport, they thought, seeing a lot of people outside of the airport, they thought it was Jay-Z or Beyonce who came to Kigali. And when I get out of the plane and the airport, they saw it was a skinny guy. That time I was very skinny. So they saw skinny, who's this? So for them, they expected Jay-Z or Beyonce, but it was a Dogon, a refugee guy from Gihembe. So when I got here in New York, I kept writing my book, and Those We Throw Away Diamond. I think some of you, if you got the chance to visit the book, it's called Those We Throw Away a Diamond. I call them Those We Throw Away a Diamond because I want to show the world that we are we can bring a lot of things. We can help everybody, especially host communities, to make the world a better place. That's why I say those we throw our diamonds. So we are diamonds. And when I met Nafiso yesterday, she's also on the call. She lives in, she's from Eritrea, I think, but she lives in South Africa. She told me her dream. She told me what she's been through, and I said, wow. And she also told me that she was impressed in my book because I called the refugee diamond. And he said, Dogon, we have two different diamonds. We have diamonds like you who are exposed to so many people who say Dogon have come through, Dogon break through all these, and that's where he lives. He lives in New York. He go wherever he want to go, things like that. But also we still have a lot of other diamonds that need to be, taken out of the, ground. And those I know, Nafiso, I really agree with you. We still have a lot of work to do. That's why MIT, that's why Mondiant Initiative, that's why another organization are working tirelessly to make sure that also we bring those diamonds alive and also put them on the market. So when I was in New York, I kept writing my book, Those We Throw Away Diamonds. I wrote to tell my story and to feel connected to the tens of millions of refugees searching the world for a home. I wrote for forever, my forever refugee family, fleeing people, conflict, or poverty in the Middle East or Central America, or you see East Africa, you see anywhere all over the world, like in Ukraine. There are a lot of crises, refugee crises. So I wrote because I want to tell readers what is really happening on the other side of the world. Maybe the places some of them have never been or may never go, or want to know what it's like to be a refugee your entire life. You're born in refugee camp and you're afraid that you will even die in refugee camp. So when I was here in New York, I realized that my book will help young people in high school or college not to take things for granted. It took me 2 or 3 days to get to Rwandan high school from Gihembe. The walk was long and very dangerous, but I tried to make it because I had this determination, and that was the only way to leave Gihembe behind, education or the school. So I also wanted to, I want young people in America or in Western countries where they have a lot of resources. I want them to read my book and see the world in new ways. There is more to life than what we can see from our front door. We can learn from others whose life is nothing like ours, and even from those whose lives we would never want. I want people to read my book and have empathy, understanding of people like Blaine, Nafiso, and other people I met who are very different from them. I hope that when they realize what others have accomplished despite their circumstances, they can also have, they can feel encouraged to dream and live with a purpose, and to make this world a better place. So that's why when I got to New York, I said, what can I do? Before, when I was in refugee camp in Rwanda, after I graduated, I went back to refugee camp. I applied a job everywhere. I have more than 100 organizations and companies. But when some of the company, I don't want to mention their names, they hired me. And after 2 weeks when I was working, they asked me my document to open the bank account. And when they realized I was a refugee, they fired me. And I went back to refugee camp in 2016. And I said, what can I do I graduated from the best university in the country. So what can I do to support these people? So I started a nonprofit organization called Informal Nonprofit Organization. I called it informal because it was not registered. So it was called the Hill of Broken Souls. So I started, I didn't have money. I was very broke. I didn't have anything. I only had one pair of shoes. I started writing stories of people. I moved from refugee camp to another camp to collect stories of war and rape. And I published it, or I didn't publish in a way like giving a national publisher, but I spread those stories into refugee communities. They read the story, and many of them, they started trusting me and accepted to share their stories, to share me their stories. So it was not easy moving from refugee camp to another without transport. And sometimes I didn't have any money. So sometimes people, they put together, they said, Dogon, we're giving you $1. So it took me time, it took so much energy to convince people to at least give me $1 to go into another camp to collect stories and write and publish. So when I come to America, I kept remembering people who accepted to share me their stories. I started a kind of organization where I worked with the UN refugee camp and the Rwandan officials. I was a student at NYU and I was doing a paid internship. So the money I made when I was making when I was at NYU, when I was a student at NYU, I sent back a refugee camp in Igihembe, not only in Igihembe, in Nyakibiheki and Kiziba. So what I did, I took all those women who were in refugee camp. Refugee camp are grouped into neighborhood. In every neighborhood, like Igihembe refugee camp where I grew up, we had 12 neighborhoods. So I took one woman, most of these women were raped and many of them were single parents. So I took the most vulnerable person in one neighborhood, and in Igihembe I took 12 women from 12 neighborhoods. And also in Nyabiheke the same, in Kiziba. So they put together, in every refugee camp, they told me their business idea, something they can do to help them rather than just sitting there from morning to evening without waiting something that can help to feed their kids. So I started this program in 2008, and it was in total when I started, the women were like 35, but now the program, last year, it was more than 100 women. So whenever I go back to Rwanda, I visit their shop. They have a small shop in refugee camp. I feel this is what everybody, you don't have to have a lot of things to help people. You can start, changing someone's lives from a very simple thing you have. So whenever I go back to Rwanda, I see those shops, I saw those women, I feel really I did something, though I was a student. So, and we changed the shift because I knew how education was not easy at all when I grew up in refugee camp. I knew how it took me to work from refugee camp Kihembe to high school. And I remember all the things I changed the Heal a Broken Soul into Mondiant Initiative. Mondiant Initiative is now an education that helps young people to attend higher education in Rwanda. We are still new, we are still startup organization, but we are going to make a lot of impact. And Mondiant Initiative, what we do, we want to send kids to school. That's why we put a GoFundMe page on. We have a GoFundMe page, and also we have a lot of way to work with other organizations. The reason an organization called former American Refugee Committee now is called Allied, so they're the one who collected donation. And soon, if God wish, we will be starting soon, maybe in September, the first cohort for our students. And so we want to help these students, not only in Rwanda, we want to grow. We want to, like Blaine said, like Nafisa said, all these people, they need, not only in Rwanda, in Uganda, we know these the most challenged people have. People in refugee camp, we don't have education. Nobody supported us. We are not eligible for financial aid. These are the main causes. And Mondiant Initiative is not only going to support education, but also we are going to see beyond that. What can people do if you go to school and come back in refugee camp? But also we try to see what can we do after they graduate. Is there anything we can do for them to transform their lives after they graduate? So there are a lot of opportunity, and I have a great team. I have a great board. I have a great, volunteers, people who are coming to join us. And whatever you feel, we have, maybe you can go to Mondiant Initiative. If you want to enjoy that ride, you say, I want to also enjoy. You may come in. We have a lot of people are coming in for voluntarily. You may say, I will give you 1 hour per week or 2 hours per week, whatever works. But there are a lot of, it's amazing and interesting work that Mondiant Initiative is doing. I believe that MIT and other organizations I've seen, they are doing the same in so different ways. You guys, especially these people who attend, you join the people, you see what is happening in Ukraine. This is the most important time where these refugees need us more than ever. I want to tell you that refugees don't just leave a place. We leave 1,000 memories, 1 million dreams to save our life. We leave our home. Forever refugees live their entire lives behind without ever finding home again. I wanted the world to see us. And I believe for me, I think that it is the obligation of every person born into a safer room to open the door when somebody in danger knocks. So it's up to us to support. It's up to us to support these people and ensure this world and make this planet a better place. This is the planet. This planet. This is the world we all call home. So thank you so much, MIT, and thank you so much for everybody who attend the conference today. May God bless you. Have a nice day.
We'd like now to invite Nefiso to join us in a closing remarks.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Nafisa, you're good. We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mondiant. I think there's nothing left to add. Talking about the refugee and their situation and what we are going through now. Thank you so much for pointing out everything. My name is Nefiso. I live in South Africa for 10 years or more than 10 years as a refugee. And comparing to other countries who are holding the refugees right now, South Africa is totally different. South Africa, I can say, is one of the most successful countries in the world when it comes to dealing with the refugees, because here we have basic rights as human. We have education, right to study, we have right to work, we have right of freedom of speech. That's a great thing for me and in the world we live in today. Comparing to other countries, like Mondiant now mentioned Rwanda. Although I don't like to go back to the past, because we are looking for a peaceful future for the rest of the world, the people who are migrants in everywhere. By having their names like refugee, immigrants, or displaced people, but still we have things which we can't deny. And as a human being, it's time for us to progress. We have to at least have the human basic rights. To get education is one of the most fundamental things for human beings. As Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. If anyone who are here today, or anyone who will hear my thoughts, the first thing we concentrate is to educate people, whether they live in their homeland, home countries, or whether they live in other countries. That should be something we can't negotiate about it. So when we lose the refugees who run away, what happened in Myanmar and living in Bangladesh now, and we want to study, to develop, to live a life which everyone has. And then you go to university or college or Minister of Education in the country tell you you can't get this because you are just a refugee. We can all feel that moment, what anyone can feel. Although that I have never experienced that, but I don't see myself because I have this opportunity in South Africa to start to develop. Also in here, also there is some limitations, but going to school and to hear from the principal, you are a refugee and you can't apply, or you went to a company to work for, and then they tell you, oh no, you don't have a document, or you are not a citizen, and you have no right to work or to study. Any one of us, maybe some of us didn't experience that situation before, but any one of us can feel at that moment. And all I want is, since we're living in 21st century, we want to go forward. We want to see a world which has a right of education. At least we can hear from the people. There are many people who doesn't have voice because it's not that they are handicapped or they can't talk. It's that they were denied their rights as a human being. And there are many people who live around the world. Maybe we are ignorant somewhere, or we are naive about their situation, but we have to wake up. And it's time for everyone to look back or to look down as a human and think, how can we help that? It's not always about the money when you want to help someone. There are some people who can do many things, like skills for life skills. There are many people who can encourage other people to move forward and look in the bright future. We don't want to have in this century people who live in the camps and they were being told you can't study because you are refugee or you are displaced or you are undocumented. That's one of the most things I believe was we are not helpless. But the thing is we are lacking of communication because there are many people who have the ability to do something about these people. And we are here today as a refugee who got the voice, who want to develop or change a world. We want to be the communicators to work between those people who were forgotten in the camp and those people who developed in their lives and get opportunity to work or to study. And when we look for what we need at this time around the globe, it's only one thing, and most of the time people they don't realize until they experience the situation. Like me and Mondiant or Plain has that experience. What that means we can describe. But now we want to take this and picture the situation, which I think the estimated number we have is 185 million people who don't live in their countries or in their homes. They were displaced or they were refugees. So I don't want to see, or I don't want to go back to the past and the problems we had, but me and you and everyone else has a right as a human being, just to be a human being, to think about others. And if we support each other, we can do that, because although I was living here, I have basic human rights in South Africa. I remember I went to apply at university, and then I was accepted in the university. So when I started the first year, when I finished, it's two things. You either fulfill the needs of yourself, or you have to study. You have no other choice. So you can study when you have support, or you can support yourself and live a life. So I did the first year. So the second year, I couldn't afford. that was a barrier. Although I have the right to study, still I'm a lesson of. I was thinking the university had different prices. So one time I have met a woman through organization, and then he gave me a recommendation letter of a university which is located in America, SNHU, and I started studying there as a communication specialist. So now I'm about to finish my four-year degree. So at the moment, if you can think about that, I almost stopped studying because I couldn't afford it. Not because I don't have right to study, but because I couldn't afford it. And at that moment, that lady, she came from America and she was working as a human rights. She was working with the organization for helping the migrants and refugees. By the time we got chance to communicate, we were able to talk and then to convince my situation. And she was very helpful to give me this recommendation letter to the university. And that's how I got where I am today. So think about it. It was only the time we were talking, it was only 1 hour or less than 1 hour. And she gave me this opportunity. You can't imagine, but I can imagine because I have been through this, but you never came. So all I'm saying is, while I was there, I got another connection through the SNHU because I got NIT through SNHU. Just the link of React.
Hello? Hi, Nafiso. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I got a chance to just a link from MIT React program. They were held in the year, and I got that link through to SNHU. So just imagine that's how we connect today. But if we try, only that time we will be able to help each other. So today I'm here with this program because I got a link from SNHU, and I am about to finish SNHU because I got recommendation from another person. So all I'm saying is, if we only try, we can help many people up there, and then we can try if we only aim to it. So all I'm saying is, if we educate, we will be able to support people around the globe who were displaced, who were migrants, who were refugees at this moment, because some of them, they don't know even how to read and how to write. So we want to be the communication between these two lines. So being here today, it gives us opportunity because there are many organizations in here who are doing their best to communicate that these people who are forgotten or these people who are struggling around the globe. So it's a duty as a human being to think and just remember what we can do about this issue. And as this program starts, it will continue for 29 days. And each and every day from today, we are going to have something related to this issue, a program or event related to this issue. And all I'm asking is to come forward to do your registration and to follow up this program so you can learn a lot. And you will be able to support somehow in some. All I'm saying, and again and over, we are the communicators. We can have an access like Mondiant. He already created an organization and he's going to work between those people who are able to be supportive and those people who are left in the camps. So at least we can share these stories, and we can register, and we can share with our colleagues, our people who we think they can be part of these programs. And I want to thank every and each of you who is here today, just to know, to become here, to know what's going on around the world with the never experience, and those who already refugee or migrants who get a time to know. So it's not time to look for back, it's time to look forward. And as women, we have a right and a little thing that's matter, a little thing. So the university, they can be part of this, the college, they can take part of this, the business people, the organizations. I really love what NIT is doing right now, creating a platform to these people. And also, what is that? There is other organizations like NEMA, who's creating a working platform for the refugee and displaced people. And I hope by the 22nd century, the world will be a better place for everyone, not only refugees, not only migrants, but all human beings at general. So I am thanking to everyone, and I will ask the people who are working with this program to share with us the links and the way we can fill all our forms so that we can be permanent in this 29 days. And we are waiting for you. We are waiting for you. We are here to work with you, and we are inviting every organization who we think can change the world for better place. Thank you, everyone. And we have next season, if you can stay for next 30 minutes, we will have also.
Thank you, Len, Nafiso, and our keynote speaker, Mondiant Dogon. Thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you in our next session starting in a half hour. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening. Good day to you all.